The Crithian warpack had seen many species across the galaxy. They had fought beside the armored Vex whose exoskeletons could withstand plasma fire. They had traded with the telepathic Mindari, who could coordinate battles through thought alone. But never had they encountered a creature quite like Dr. Sarah Chen. She arrived on their vessel as part of a diplomatic medical exchange. Her small frame dwarfed by the towering wolf-like aliens that comprised the crew. The Crithians stood nearly 3 meters tall, their silver fur bristling with natural armor plates, their amber eyes glowing with predatory intelligence. Sarah barely reached their chests. Pack leader Vorn had been skeptical. This fragile thing? He had growled to his second-in-command. The humans send us a healer who looks like she'd break in a stiff wind. But the Galactic Council had insisted. Humanity's recent admission to the interstellar community came with conditions: cultural exchanges, shared knowledge, integration. So Vorn had accepted the human doctor, though he assigned her to the medical bay and little else. For 3 weeks, Sarah worked quietly, learning Crithian physiology, adapting her human medical knowledge to their alien biology. The pack largely ignored her, seeing her as a temporary curiosity, a box to check for the bureaucrats back on their homeworld of Crith Prime. Everything changed on the 4th week. The training exercise had gone wrong. Young Rak, barely past his cub stage at 15 cycles, had been sparring with the veterans when he'd misjudged a strike. The veteran's claws had raked across his side, opening a deep gash that bled profusely. In Crithian culture, such wounds were badges of honor, one learned through pain, through the sting of consequences. The pack gathered around as Rak stumbled to the medical bay, clutching his bleeding side. By tradition, Healer Morn would clean the wound with burning antiseptic while the cub stood silent, proving his strength. No painkillers, no comfort, only the lesson that survival meant enduring. Sarah was alone in the medical bay when Rak staggered through the door. She took one look at the ragged wound and the young Crithian's labored breathing, and her training took over. "Sit," she commanded, pointing to the examination table. Rak's ears flattened in surprise. Humans didn't give orders to Crithians. But something in her voice, that tone of absolute authority that all good medics possessed, made him obey. Sarah's hands moved with practiced efficiency. She grabbed the medical scanner, assessing the damage. Deep tissue trauma, possible internal bleeding, risk of infection. She reached for the sedative injector. "No," Rak growled weakly. "No pain medicine. It is not our way." Sarah looked up at him, her brown eyes meeting his amber ones. "I don't care about your way right now. I care about saving your life. This is going to hurt, but not as much as dying." She pressed the injector to his neck before he could protest. The sedative worked quickly, and Rak's protests faded to confused murmurs. Sarah worked fast, sealing the wound with synthetic tissue, cleaning out debris, administering antibiotics tailored for Crithian biology that she'd spent weeks preparing. The medical bay doors hissed open. Healer Morn entered, followed by pack leader Vorn and a dozen warriors. They stopped when they saw Sarah elbow deep in Rak's wound, her hands steady, her face a mask of concentration. "What are you doing?" Healer Morn's voice was a dangerous rumble. "You interrupt the teaching. You shame the cub with your softness." Sarah didn't look up, didn't pause in her work. "I'm doing my job. This wound was infected. Another hour and it would have been septic. Your teaching would have killed him." The medical bay went silent. No one spoke to Healer Morn that way. No one challenged pack traditions, especially not an outsider, especially not a human. Vorn's claws extended slightly. "You overstep, human." "No," Sarah said, finally looking up, her voice calm but unyielding. "You overstep. You put tradition before life. Where I come from, we have a saying, 'First, do no harm.' I took an oath to preserve life. I don't care if you're Crithian or human or something else entirely. A patient is a patient. A wound is a wound. And right now, this cub needs treatment, not a lesson." She returned to her work, suturing the internal damage. The pack watched in silence, uncertain how to respond to this bizarre human who seemed to fear nothing. Rak stirred slightly, his eyes opening. "Hurts less," he murmured in confusion. "That's the idea," Sarah said softly, her voice gentling. "You're going to be fine. You were very brave." Something shifted in the room. The warriors exchanged glances. In Crithian culture, pack members protected cubs fiercely. It was instinct hardwired into their biology. And here was this human, this fragile creature who had put herself between a wounded cub and the entire pack's tradition without hesitation. Vorn stepped closer, studying Sarah with new eyes. You drugged him. You showed him weakness. I showed him compassion, Sarah corrected, cleaning her instruments. There's a difference. Pain for pain's sake teaches nothing. But treating wounds, preventing infection, ensuring survival, that's what creates strong warriors. Dead cubs don't learn anything. She met Vorn's gaze without flinching. The pack leader saw something there he hadn't expected. Not fear or defiance, but the same fierce protective instinct that drove Crithian pack behavior. This human had adopted Rak as her own, even if only for the duration of his treatment. Healer Morn stepped forward, examining Rak's wound. The seal was perfect, the tissue already knitting together with the help of the synthetic matrix. No infection, no complications. The cub would recover fully and quickly. Morn's ears twitched in grudging respect. The human did well, Morn admitted slowly. Over the following weeks, something changed. Warriors who had avoided Sarah now sought her out for minor injuries they would have previously ignored. She treated each one with the same fierce efficiency, the same unwavering care. She learned their names, their histories, asked about their families back on Crith Prime. When the ship encountered a pirate ambush and 3 warriors were critically wounded, Sarah worked for 18 hours straight in the medical bay. Refusing to rest until all 3 were stable, Vorn found her afterward, collapsed in a chair, her hands still trembling from exhaustion. You should rest, Dr. Chen, he said quietly. Can't, she mumbled. Need to monitor them. Internal injuries can develop complications. Vorn studied her, this small, fragile creature who had somehow become essential to his pack. You care for them. Of course I do, Sarah said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. They're my patients. My responsibility? No, Vorn said. It's more than duty. You protect them as pack protects cubs. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Maybe. I guess I've always been that way. My grandmother used to say I collected strays, injured birds, lost cats, anyone who needed help. I became a doctor because I couldn't stand seeing suffering and doing nothing about it. That evening, Vorn called a pack gathering. Sarah stood nervously to the side as the warriors assembled, uncertain what was happening. The pack leader approached her and the entire crew went silent. Dr. Sarah Chen, Vorn said formally, you came to us as an outsider. You challenged our ways. You drugged a cub and defied a healer. Sarah's heart sank. This was it. She was being sent home in disgrace. But Vorn continued, you also saved that cub's life. You have tended to our warriors with courage and skill. You have shown the heart of pack, the fierce protection of those weaker, the refusal to abandon the wounded, the willingness to stand alone against challenge to protect others. He placed a massive paw on her shoulder, claws carefully retracted. The pack has decided. You are not human who visits. You are pack who heals. You are one of us. The warriors began a low, rhythmic growl, not threatening but welcoming. Sarah realized with shock that it was a Crithian song of acceptance, usually reserved for cubs coming of age or warriors proving themselves in battle. Tears pricked her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, Healer Morn said, stepping forward with a rare smile. Prove it in action as you have already done. That is the pack way. Young Rak approached, now fully healed. He bowed his head in respect. Thank you, pack healer. My wound taught me much, not about enduring pain, but about recognizing those who truly care for the pack. Sarah smiled, reaching up to ruffle the fur between his ears the way she'd seen adult Crithians do with cubs. Just stay out of trouble, okay? My heart can't take another emergency like that. Rak's tail wagged slightly, a sign of contentment. I make no promises, but if trouble finds me, I know you will be there. As the gathering dispersed, Sarah remained with Vorn, looking out at the stars through the viewport. You know, she said quietly, humans have a saying, family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who see you for who you are and accept you anyway. Vorn's ears perked up. Crithians have similar wisdom. Pack is not birthed. Pack is chosen. You chose us, Dr. Chen, when you chose to protect Rak, and so we choose you. Sarah Chen had come aboard the Crithian vessel as a temporary assignment, a diplomatic necessity. But as she stood among warriors twice her size, accepted as one of their own, She realized she'd found something she hadn't known she was looking for, a place where her fierce protective nature wasn't too much, where her refusal to let anyone suffer was seen not as weakness but as the greatest strength. She was Pack now, and Pack took care of its own.